I'm here today because my son lost his life due to fentanyl poisoning. And I want to share a little bit about his story, and I want to talk about why addicts do not ask for help. My son Robert went on a teen tour when he was 15 years old to the western United States with a group of people his age and some counselors. Unfortunately, he broke his hand. They took him to the emergency room. The doctor wrote him for 40 Vicodin with a refill, and it was downhill from then. He came back from that teen tour. My wife and I just thought he was a teenager going through normal teenage things. And we just thought, you know, he smoked a lot of marijuana. He went to college, did pretty well at college. And when he graduated college is when we discovered his addiction. And he was addicted to benzodiazepines and opioids. Right then, it was all hands on deck. And we really never kicked him out of the house. We brought him back home. We opened our arms with love and did everything we possibly could for our son. He persevered. He entered into a master's program, got his master's degree, got a great job. In that time, he went to 3 different rehab facilities, and each time he would finish a rehab, he would have periods of sobriety that lasted anywhere from 6 months to 12 months. Our lives, my wife, my other son, they were filled with exhaustion and hope and frustration. In his 25th year, he got a girlfriend. He was living on his own. He kind of lived with his girlfriend. She was wonderful. He had a great career as a data analyst for a beverage company, and he was sober for a period of 12 months. And we really thought he was on his way. I went into the hospital for a surgical procedure. He showed up at the hospital a little messed up, and that was the first time, you know, we had friends and family in the waiting room that anybody saw him messed up besides his parents. And he was called out on it and walked out of the waiting room to go for a walk. He was gone all day. You know, I was in a procedure, my wife was worried about me and also worried where'd Robert go. And it's funny because the gentleman who just spoke talked about a thump. And that hit a nerve because my wife, you know, we've discussed this a million times, obviously. She heard a thump. My son had, and by the way, this happened on January 20th of this year. And this is my first public speaking talk about this, but so she heard the thump and thought nothing of it. Turns out he had walked out of the waiting room, walked around the corner to a bathroom for one, walked into the bathroom and passed away. He took a Xanax laced with fentanyl. That's what the toxicology report showed. Here we go. You know, to understand why this crisis is so deadly, and again, my talk's different from the 2 talks that preceded me, we have to understand addiction. Addiction is a disease, it's a chronic brain disease. It's not a moral failing. Addiction impacts the reward system of the brain. When people do something that makes them feel good, from the middle of the brain, it releases a neurotransmitter called dopamine. And that's what makes people feel good. You have a drink, you're doing something fun, whatever, you get that rush of dopamine. There's people that are addicts, they get that rush of dopamine and they love it. And they get it again and again and again. And eventually that dopamine doesn't do anything for them. But they have to keep having that dopamine because they can't live a normal life without that rush of dopamine. They can't even be an average person. Without that rush of dopamine, they cannot function in everyday life. The front of the brain is the area of the brain that leads to decision-making and compulsive behaviors. There's a tract from the midbrain to the frontal brain that becomes distorted during active addiction. And it takes about a year or a year and a half of recovery in order for that to start to regenerate. So again, this is a medical condition. It's not a character flaw. Like any disease, early treatment and early detection are critical. My wife and I, unfortunately, and even being in the healthcare field and having a million friends and family that were in the healthcare field, we didn't realize this at an early age. Unfortunately, Robert was using drugs while his brain was developing, which is the most critical time. Your brain develops until you're about 20 years old. And to cut right to the chase, that screws things up. And he really didn't have a chance. What I learned from watching my son and what I've seen from others, that asking for help is much harder than people think. Robert he went to Alcoholics Anonymous, which definitely prolonged his life. He was talking to an addiction therapist every week. And one time I got to talk to the addiction therapist, and I said to him, look, what bothers me the most about addiction is that people can't ask for help. They don't ask for help. If you have any other disease and you're feeling bad, or you're having a bad day, help me out. Please help me. Get me to a doctor. Do this for me. Do this. But with mental health and mental illness, it's a whole different world. Your therapist is only as good as what you tell him or her. So again, why don't addicts ask for help? There's a shame and a stigma and a fear of being judged as being an addict. You're seen as weak or a bad person. My son lost all of his friends. Some of the family abandoned him. He was abandoned. He felt like he was wearing a hat that said addiction on it, or addict. There's denial, telling themselves, I can handle this, or this time will be different, or I could sneak a little pill, or whatever, and I could just do this one time. There's the fear of withdrawal. I don't know if anybody has been through, I know there's people in here that have been through withdrawal. It's an extremely painful psychological and physical pain that people go through when they withdraw, and I saw Robert go through it several times. There's a loss of hope. When people relapse, it makes them feel like they'll never succeed and they have no future. And there's also the burden on family, not wanting to hurt or disappoint the people that have helped them and loved them so much. I don't know the answer. Nobody knows the answer, because addiction is just horrible. What can we do as friends, family, and a community? Create safety. Let loved ones know that they won't be judged if they struggle. I know that's hard, but we need to do that. Welcome them with open arms. Listen to them and don't lecture them. Sometimes just being present is more powerful than advice. Advice goes in one ear and out the other with addiction. Encourage early intervention. The earlier the help is sought, the better the chances. And advocate for resources such as support groups, treatment access, and education. One conversation can save a life. Compassion and early action equals prevention. One pill can kill, and one caring voice can save a life. If you take one thing from my talk, let it be this. Addiction is not a moral failing. It is a disease. And when we create a world where it's safe to ask for help, we give more people a chance to live. I wish every day that Robert asks for help one more time. By sharing his story, I hope someone else finds the strength to reach out, and that another family gets the chance mine has lost. Thank you all very much.